and she ditched her date at the winter formal to go off with another guy. This exchange student, this poor, nice kid who was visiting from a foreign country, she left him at the winter formal and went off with another guy. And so she was like, you just gave her a taste of her own medicine. And I was like, what? Oh my God, what? I've been beating myself up over this for 30 years, thinking that I was a horrible person. And she did something worse, from my perspective, to this exchange student. And right then, it's just like all the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame, it went away. I was like, I can stop beating myself up over this. I edited that out of my relationship frequency. And a year later, I got married. And now we're having twins. The point of this story is to tell you that whatever you're beating yourself up over, the nightmare that exists within your mind, is preventing you from realizing the fantasy. Because you deserve the fantasy. You deserve your dreams to come true. Welcome to the Weekly Transit, your guide to understanding the current planetary and astral alignments. Together, we'll explore how to harness these cosmic frequencies, empowering you to reach your highest potential as you navigate the days ahead. I'm your host, Scott Tajarian. Welcome to the Weekly Transit. This is the week of October 6th to the 12th, where we will be covering 5 transits highlighted by the full moon in Aries and Mercury beginning its transit in Scorpio. A couple announcements before we begin. I got a new website, so check that out, theweeklytransit.com. I just did a podcast interview with Alexander Dunlop, author of Play Your Cards Right, where we look at the source cards and astrology for Charlie Kirk and everything surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk that was most recently. I'm also going to be doing a special episode with Delisa Hawking. For those of you who know, Delisa and I have been meeting every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on her YouTube and Facebook channels to talk about all things that are going on in the world and the astrological implications. Well, this Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, on Wednesday, October 8th, we're going to be doing a special episode also on Charlie Kirk. This is not going to be aired live, so if you want to check out what Delisa and I are going to be discussing, I don't even know exactly what we're going to be discussing, but I'm sure it's going to be an interesting conversation. We both have a lot to say and reflect upon regarding Charlie Kirk, but because it's such a sensitive subject matter, we're not going to be filming this live. She might put it out later, depending on how she feels about it. I'm going to leave it up to Delisa. But if you would like to be there live when we're recording, it is 11:30 a.m., 2:30 p.m. this Wednesday, October 8th. And the link to sign up to get access to what Delisa and I will be sharing will be in the show notes here. So just click the link. It's free to join and sign up. And yeah, I hope to see you there. Is that the only announcements? I think so. Okay. So check out the new website. I hope you like it. And I'm going to be adding some new features to the website. I'm going to be doing written reports as well, because I've heard from a few of you who said, yeah, you would like to have written reports. You're introverted, and I totally get it. It's like, and I don't take offense. Like, what, you don't want to see me? You don't want to talk to me? No, it's all good. And some people, they don't have time to sit for an hour or, an hour and a half to just chat astrology. So, and they want a written report so they can go through the information at their own pace. And that works. So I'm going to be adding that as well. So let's get into the week. The first transit of the week is the full moon in Aries, which occurs on Monday, October 6th at 8:47 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. So this full moon is the full moon that comes after the new moon solar eclipse, which was at 29 degrees in Virgo a couple weeks ago. So this is the full expression of that frequency that began with the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo. I've got a lot to say about this full moon in the Substack essay that I wrote that I'm going to read at the end of the episode. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my Substack. And to those who are paid subscribers, thank you very much. I want to give a shout out to Ricky King, my fellow astrologer. I have an episode with her coming up in a couple weeks where we're going to talk about the conjunction between Mars and Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. And Ricky has gotten really into the degrees, and she turned me on to this Serbian astrologer, Nikola Stojanovic. Nikola Stojanovic. I think I'm saying that right, or Stojanovic. But Nikola Stojanovic, he created this system of degrees and how each degree is associated with a sign of the zodiac. And so 14 degrees Aries is where the full moon is, and the 14th degree is a Taurus degree. And so there is symbolism around self-worth and values with this degree. Now, of course, Aries is cardinal fire. Cardinal leadership leads us into the new season. Fire is expressive. It's extroverted because it's something that can touch you, but it's not something that you would want to touch. It could warm a room on a cold winter's night, or it can burn down the house. It's all how you're working with the energy. So when we're thinking about the full moon, it's a release. And what we want to release is the lower frequencies of Aries and the lower frequencies of Libra. So Aries is cardinal fire, Libra is cardinal air. They're both cardinal because they lead us into the season. Air and fire are both extroverted. So they have that in common, Libra and Aries. There's a natural flow and synastry to these two energies, but there is some polarization between the two of them as well. Aries is ruled by Mars, the god of war. Libra is ruled by Venus, the goddess of love. Aries is symbolized by the ram. The ram strikes in order to establish dominance so that it can lead the herd. Whereas Libra is symbolized by the scales, which create balance, harmony, equanimity, fairness. So in thinking about this full moon and what we're releasing, let's just try to break this down slowly, step by step. Though with Aries, there's a tendency to rush. There's an impatience to Aries. whereas Libra is more patient, potentially. We got to be patient to weigh the scales. So, Aries, and thinking about Aries. And what is Aries? Aries and Libra are the two signs that represent relationships. Aries is my relationship with myself. Libra is my relationship with another person. So the lower frequency of Aries, well, when you think of every sign, think about, ask yourself two questions when you think of every sign. The two questions, very, very, very simple. Simple questions to ask, maybe a little more complex to answer, but the two questions are, where's the love and where's the fear? So with Aries, where is the love? The love is in self-confidence, courage, authenticity, the courage to be authentic, the courage to be yourself because you love yourself. And why would I want to be anyone different than who I am? It's not an arrogant statement, that's the fear. It's just a statement of fact. This is who I am, and so this is who I should be. And it's my attempt to be the best version of who I am. The fear of Aries is arrogance, cockiness, aggression, aggravation. Those are insecurities. When you are insecure, you may be aggressive, you may be arrogant, you may be cocky, you may be an agitator because you are fearful. You've been harmed in the past, and so you are attempting to protect yourself. So part of this full moon is really watching where you are being arrogant or aggressive, an agitator, cocky, somebody who's inciting conflict. When you think of Libra, the love is knowing your value. Knowing your value, knowing your worth. And that fits in with that 14th degree. The Taurus degree. Thank you, Ricky. And Nicola. Understanding your self-worth. Knowing your value. If you don't know whatever you are putting on your side of the scale, if you don't know what that is worth, then what you get on the other side of the scale might not be something that you should be trading whatever it is you're trading for. It's about when you know your worth, you know your standard, then you know if what's on the other side is worth receiving in exchange for what you're giving. The lower frequency of Libra is people-pleasing, settling for less, settling in general. You know, the term settling. Don't settle, they say. Don't settle. So we want to release the people-pleasing. We want to release the arrogance. We want to release the insecurities and low self-esteem. that's what we want to release during this full moon in Aries. I got to see the higher frequency of Libra with my wife, Gabriella, who's a Libra. We had to get a new vehicle because we've got twins coming and both of our cars were too small to have 2 car seats and a stroller in the back that we're gonna be carrying around everywhere. So we had to get a new vehicle. And when we went to the car dealership, I mean, the first one we went to, it was really strange because like nobody wanted to help us. We had to like ask, is there anyone here that we can talk to about looking at a car? It was really weird. Never really had that experience at a car dealership where, typically there's salespeople falling all over you because they want to sell you a car. But this one dealership, it was strange. So we're like, okay, well, we're not going to go back there. If we had gone back, that would have been settling. But there's a standard. If I'm going to pay you money, then I want a certain level of respect in return. So we went to another dealership on a different evening, and that was a totally different experience. The salesperson practically skipped and danced out of the building into the lot and greeted us. He was so friendly and excited to meet us, and he must have showed us probably a dozen different vehicles, but none met our specifications, particularly Gabriella's. If it was just me, I probably would have just settled for any vehicle that fit within my price range and the parameters in terms of the size of what we were looking for. But Gabriella, as a Libra is ruled by Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, and so it needs to be beautiful to her specifications. The color she likes, the trim, the interior, everything needs to be beautiful. And she's a Virgo moon, so it's got to be very specific. And I really appreciate that about her because we didn't rush to a decision. And we made it very clear to the salesperson that we wanted to buy a car from him because we really appreciated how he was treating us through the whole process. This is kind of the give and take when you think about the scales of balance. He wants to sell us a car. We say, okay, well, this is what we want. And then he comes back and says, this is what I have. And we say yes or no. And so we left the dealership that night without a car. And over the next few days, he texted me and different options that he thought might be appropriate for us. And I turned him down probably 3 or 4 times because they did not fit to our, or even more specifically, Gabriella's specifications, but also mine too, in terms of price. I'm like, no, that's out of our price range. Not going there. It's got to be in this number range. And then for Gabriella, it was like, the color and the style and that kind of stuff. And eventually we got to a car that he's like, I think this is going to work. And I showed Gabriella and she's like, I think this is going to work. I looked at the price. I said, I think this is going to work. And we went there and we got the car. And it felt great because it felt like everybody on all sides, on our side, Gabriella, me, and on the side of the salesperson, everybody was happy. It was a win-win situation. And it was a win-win situation because nobody settled. There's a lot of love. And it's a strange thing to say when you go to a car dealership, because like the stereotype of a car dealership is like they're going to try to screw you over, you're going to try to screw them over. And this was not that. There was genuine love and appreciation for one another because everybody was clear about the parameters of what they wanted. And so I share this example with you so that you can take this energy into the full moon and release anything that's holding you back from being your authentic self. To release anything that is requiring or forcing you to settle. This is what we were supposed to release during this Virgo season, is the stagnation. And now we can show our face. Remember, Aries rules the head. So it's about showing your face. So release the facade that you're hiding behind because you're afraid to show your true self. By showing your true self, you're actually going to get the deal that makes you feel good. That makes you feel loved. That makes you feel valued. And that's the frequency for this full moon. Now, looking ahead to the next lunar cycle, for the first time in 59 lunar cycles, I'm not doing a moon cycle class. What? Because I think in the next couple of weeks or so, Gabrielle is going to give birth to our babies, and I certainly didn't want to schedule a class only to have to cancel it because she's going through labor. So the next moon cycle class is going to be on November 17th, where we're going to cover the new moon in Scorpio and the full moon in Gemini. And it's going to be different than past moon cycle classes because it's just one class, it's 1 hour, and it's just on that one day, November 17th at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's $35. We're going to cover what the new moon and the full moon mean and what it means in every single house. The new moon in each house, the full moon in each house. There will be time for questions and discussion. And if you're not able to make the class, you'll get the recording. So I really hope that you'll join me as we do the reboot for the moon cycle class on November 17th, or at which point I'll be a father, and it'll be a new start. A new start for me, a new start for the moon cycle class. So I hope to see you there. I look forward to seeing you there. The second transit of the week is Mercury in Scorpio, which happens right after or right before the full moon in Aries. It happens on Monday, October 6th. And Mercury is going to transit all the way through Scorpio from October 6th to the 29th. And then it's going to retrograde back the last 10 degrees of Scorpio from November 19th to December 11th. So this is the first wave of Mercury in Scorpio. The second wave will involve the retrograde. Mercury moves into its retrograde shadow on October 21st. So Mercury is the messenger of the gods, guide of souls to the underworld, the planet of consciousness, communication, coordination. the god of merchants and thieves. Scorpio is the fixed water sign symbolized by the scorpion and ruled by Mars, the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, conflict, and Pluto, the god of death, lord of the underworld, the planet of transformation. So we've got the full moon in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and we got Mercury transiting into Scorpio, which is also ruled by Mars. So what's the difference between Mars ruling Aries and Mars ruling Scorpio? Mars ruling Aries is the extroverted expression of Mars. It's the grunt, the soldier that's charging into battlefield, firing the weapon, screaming, protecting the boundary, attacking the border. Meanwhile, Mars in Scorpio is behind enemy lines as the spy. So as the full moon happens and we're releasing the facade, there's also something secretive happening beneath the surface in your mind. How are you communicating with others? Mercury in Scorpio, we're all going to be a little more psychic during this period. We're going to be able to plunge to the depths of what's going on with others, in their mind, in their psyche. When we went to the car dealership and Javier, the salesperson, he went back inside, and Gabriella's, because he was grabbing the keys to one of the cars on the first night that we met him, Gabriella's like, I really love him. And I was like, I knew right then, I was like, we're buying a car from Javier. And when we left the dealership, I told Gabriella, I was like, we're going to have a new car by the end of the week. Because I made it clear to Javier that we want to buy a car from him, and I know that he's going to find us a car. And by the end of the week, we had a new car. I was born with Mercury in Scorpio. So maybe that's a little psychic ability or intuition. But it's just like a feeling, a knowing. It's like trusting your instincts or trusting that inner voice. That's what Mercury in Scorpio is about. It's trusting that mental twitch. Like the bells that go off in your mind. You're like, why is that thought there? It's not there for no reason. It's there for a reason. This is helping you delve to the depths of your most intimate relationships. To see what is going on in the minds of those that you are connected to. And through those connections, those mental sparks that are going on in your mind, it's allowing you to go deeper in the discussions that you're having with those that you're connected to. It's getting out of the shallow end of the pool and going down into the depths of areas that maybe you don't visit too often, but it's necessary for you to go there in order to really bring to the surface, bring to light what's going on between you and those you're most deeply connected to, those that you love. Scorpio is the bond. It's where you can't tell where you end and the other person begins. When they feel pain, you feel pain. When they feel joy, you feel joy. When they're angry at you, it keeps you up at night. It's really hard to detach from a Scorpio, and it's really difficult for a Scorpio to detach from other people. People that they've given themselves to. Whether it's a physical giving or a mental, emotional sharing of intimacy. Those experiences leave an imprint. And so during this period, October 6th to the 29th, maybe the conversations that you have leave an imprint on your soul. Be mindful of whether or not these conversations are elevating you or they're draining you. What is the imprint that's being made upon your soul? Is it light or dark? Light or heavy? There may be paranoia and manipulation that occurs during this period because we all may be feeling a little more vulnerable mentally because we're seeing things from all different sides. We're calculating all the possibilities that could occur. The good, the bad, the ugly. People sometimes tend to shy away or express fear with the Scorpio energy, but I see this as bringing light to the darkness. That's what happens with Scorpio. Mercury is like that torch, and Mercury in Scorpio is like bringing that torch into the cave. So which caves do you want to explore with regards to those that you're intimate with? Grab a torch and dive on down. See what you find. The hope is that by having these conversations, you're going to feel more connected, more bonded to the people that you're sharing yourself with. But that's also why you want to be mindful about who you're sharing yourself with, because it is going to be deeper and more bonding, these connections. So who are you connecting with? You want to be connecting with people or someone who is going to lift you up, just as it's your intention to lift them up. Through love and respect. So by releasing the facade of the full moon in Aries and being authentic, you will hopefully be attracting to yourself those who are an authentic reflection of you. And if what you are emanating is love, then what you will receive is love. And then you dive down deep into the depths of your psyche and soul with love in another person. and the bond is formed in love. Now, the last time Mercury transited through Scorpio was October 13th to November 2nd, 2024. The time before that was October 21st to November 9th, 2023. The time before that, October 29th to November 17th, 2022. And the time before that, November 5th to the 24th, 2021. So think back to those dates for clues on what could be in store this time around as Mercury transits through Scorpio. Curious to hear how those previous Mercury in Scorpio transits had affected you. So leave a comment, share some insight into how you think this Mercury Scorpio transit may be for you moving forward based on the dates previously given and your experiences there. I'm curious to know. Always happy to hear from you. I'll respond as soon as I can. Really love hearing from you, the listener. Thank you for being here. The third transit of the week, continuing with Mercury in Scorpio, forms a square with Pluto, the planetary ruler of Scorpio, which is transiting retrograde through Aquarius. Aquarius is fixed air, Scorpio fixed water. Both fixed, they make a strong connection, but air and water don't mix, so that creates tension. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, the god of wealth and time, and Uranus, the planet of revolution, and is symbolized by the water bearer. The scorpion, the water bearer, these are energies that don't back down from anyone or anything. So there's tension here as Mercury transits into Scorpio and squares off with the planetary ruler of Scorpio, Pluto. Mercury and Pluto are each of them, in the language of astrology, the symbol, they're each root symbol is in their symbol. Circle of spirit, your eternal soul, no beginning, no end. The cross of matter, which represents the four elements of matter, fire, earth, air, water. And the crescent of receptivity, which represents giving, receiving, teaching, learning. They both look like stick figures. Mercury is a circle of spirit on top of a cross of matter, so is Pluto. The difference is the crescent of receptivity for Mercury is on top of the circle of spirit. It looks like a couple of antennas. And for Pluto, the circle of spirit, the crescent of receptivity goes between the circle of spirit and the cross of matter, signifying transformation. Whereas Mercury is communication. Mercury is guide of souls to the underworld. Pluto is lord of the underworld. Scorpio is secrets. Aquarius is coming out of the closet. So as Mercury transits into Scorpio and squares off with Pluto, retrograde in Aquarius, from Monday to Wednesday, October 6th to the 8th, with the exact square coming on Tuesday, October 7th, there could be secrets that are revealed. Perhaps you learn an uncomfortable truth, or you find yourself sharing an uncomfortable truth unexpectedly. It's like, I can't believe I just said that. When you're thinking about the full moon in Aries and authenticity and releasing the facade, and you're thinking about Mercury and Scorpio and being drained or lifted by those that you're connected to, just an example could be maybe you find that you're in a conversation with somebody and you're like, wow, I just hung out with this person and we talked about them for 2 hours and they didn't once ask me about myself, and I just feel really drained by this conversation. And so you go to that person later on and you say, last time we hung out, I just felt really drained because we just talked about you for the 2 hours and you didn't even ask me about myself. And they say, yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. And quite frankly, I'm really not that interested in knowing anything about you. It's like, what? That's not what I expected to hear. Like, yeah, if you want to be my friend, then that's what it means. I'd rather talk about me than you. I'm really not that interested in you. Ooh, do I want to be friends with that person? At least they're being authentic with me. But probably not. But that's just an example of a secret that could be revealed if you're being authentic with people in your life. A secret that's uncomfortable. Just an example. So brace yourself for being dragged out of the closet or secrets being brought into the light that you're potentially not ready for. But you are, because that's why it's happening. But it's maybe not comfortable. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid instead of taking it off little by little, where you're just pulling every single hair nice and slow. Ouch. I mean, both hurt, but I'd rather the hurt be quick than long. And so that takes us to our fourth transit of the week, which involves Venus in Virgo forming a sextile to Jupiter in Cancer. This hopefully soothes and eases the previous transit of Mercury in Scorpio squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, which is revealing that uncomfortable secret. Venus in Virgo, sextile Jupiter in Cancer, is helping you edit out the fat, trim the fat. Venus is the goddess of love and beauty, the planet of relationships, transiting through the mutable earth sign symbolized by the Virgin, Virgo. Jupiter is the god of thunder, lord of justice, the planet of luck and expansion, transiting through the cardinal water sign symbolized by the crab and ruled by the moon, Cancer. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So Venus transiting through Virgo, we're taking a strong mental inventory of our relationships, and we're figuring out what needs to be edited. Maybe it means editing out an entire relationship, or maybe it means editing a frequency within the relationship. That frequency being like, when we hang out, I want more balance in terms of what we're talking about. I feel like we're talking about you all the time and not me at all. And that person comes back and says, no, I don't want it. I like the way that it is. So maybe that means that you edit out that person, or if that person is more willing to create balance and harmony for your sake, then they'll be willing to edit out that frequency and say, yeah, that's cool. Totally. I'm so sorry that, I just took over the conversation and I do want to hear about you. So, I'll try to be more mindful to ask you some questions about what's going on in your life, so that you feel like there's attention paid to you. But the connection between Venus in Virgo and Jupiter in Cancer is helping us reflect upon our past and the past of our relationships, the origin of our relationships. Like, how did I attract this person in my life that is so narcissistic? Oh, that's right. My parents are narcissistic. Maybe it's something like that. I was raised by narcissists. If that's you, then maybe you're attracting narcissists into your life. That's the hot word that everybody likes to use. But it's just an example. And it's an example to encourage you to look at the roots of your relationships. Think about every relationship in your life and where it began, and who you were when it began, and then go back to your first relationships that you ever had, which is your parents. And those set the example of what you're naturally attuned to finding in your life and your relationships. So the connection between Venus in Virgo and Jupiter in Cancer, which is occurring from Monday to Thursday with the exact sextile happening on Wednesday, October 8th. So this is occurring from October 6th to the 9th. This is helping you reflect upon your past and understand why you're in the relationships that you're in and what you can edit out of them now. That like, oh yeah, this is a part of my life because that's how it always was, but I don't have to do that anymore. I'm an adult. As a child, I didn't have a choice. I had to live with my parents, and this is how they did things. And some of the things that they did, I really appreciate, and those are some great attributes that I will carry with me. But then there's other aspects in terms of how they interacted with other people that I don't feel like that's really working for me in life. So I'm going to adjust that and remove that from the equation so that I can have relationships that are healthier for me. That leads us to the final transit of the week, which also includes Venus in Virgo, forming an opposition to Saturn retrograde in Pisces. This transit occurs from Thursday to Sunday. It closes out the week with the exact opposition occurring on Saturn Day, October 11th. So this is happening from the 9th to the 12th. It's really a great way to end the week, even though there is tension here. And the tension is going to help you make the hard decisions. Because Saturn is the god of wealth and time, the planet of restriction, responsibility, hard work, achievement, authority. Pisces is the mutable water sign symbolized by the fish and ruled by Jupiter. And Neptune, the god of fresh water and the sea, the planet of illusion, deception, compassion, intuition. Saturn transiting through Pisces is urging us to take responsibility for our mental processing, what goes on beneath the surface of our mind. The guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame. Maybe the reason why you are in relationships that are not satisfactory, or it feels like you're settling, is because you're being really hard on yourself. You're holding guilt, shame, regret, and blame. You're beating yourself up. You're living in your own nightmare. Venus in Virgo opposing Saturn retrograde in Pisces is helping you edit out the nightmare. Edit out the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame. So when you think about the transits of the week, releasing the facade with the full moon in Aries, having the courage to delve into the depths of the mental processing that exists between you and those that you're intimate with and the way that you communicate with each other. Being open to sharing uncomfortable secrets so that you can be clear about what needs to be edited from the habits that you've created through the roots and origins of your relationships that go back to your parents and even your grandparents and your ancestors that created the relationship frequency that they passed down to your parents that have then been passed down to you. Now with this final transit, it's about editing it out because it's not working. What's weighing on your mind? Where are you suffering mentally? This brought up an example for me that just really hit me. Like, this was like, wow, oh my God. So when I was in high school, there was a girl who had a crush on me. Sophomore, junior year. I always knew she liked me. My mom really liked her, which is why she really turned me off. Something about my mom being really excited about a girl made me not like that girl. This girl asked me to the prom, our junior year, which totally flips the script, I was in my feminine energy. She was in her masculine energy. When we were at the prom together, she won prom queen. And I was so insecure about myself, just the stigma that I had over myself and my own insecurities. I didn't think she was the hottest girl in the school, so she wasn't good enough for me. And that's maybe an example of where the standard is not out of love, it's out of fear. Because I set my standard in that she had to have like a certain status. The irony is that she won prom queen, which like you think like prom queen, like that is status. And when they did like the dance for the prom queen, her brother danced with her. And I was sitting at a table talking to friends. And then when I took her home, I had the audacity to like lean in for a kiss, and she turned her face. I was stunned, shocked. But how could I have been shocked? When I was a teenager. She really taught me a hard lesson, and I felt really, 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 really bad. Really bad. I was like, wow, I was a real jerk. And when I left for college, about a year and a half later, I had some really difficult experiences there in my first quarter of school, and I was incredibly homesick, and I wrote to her and I apologized to her for the way that I treated her, and I didn't hear back. So when I came home the first time after starting school during Thanksgiving, I called her and she answered, and I asked her if she got the letter, and she said that she did, and I asked her if we could talk, and she said yes, but she was in the middle of something and she would call me back. And I'm still waiting for that phone call. For 30 years, I beat myself up over the way that I treated this woman, this young girl, in shunning her at the prom. I was disappointed in my masculine energy. I should have been more confident, more courageous. But I wasn't. I was afraid. I was insecure. I was a teenager. I beat myself up about this for 30 years. Meanwhile, she went on and got married. I think she has like 4 kids. As far as I know, she's living a happy life. But I was punishing myself for 30 years. And then one night when I was back where I grew up, visiting a married couple who I went to high school with, I was kind of lamenting to them this story about how I, feel really bad for what I did. And the wife, she kind of laughed and said, Scott, give yourself a break. I went on a double date with her, this girl that I went to the prom with. This is what the wife was telling me. she was saying it was me and this guy, and it was this girl and this guy who was an exchange student, and the four of us went to the winter formal. And she ditched her date at the winter formal to go off with another guy. This exchange student, this poor, nice kid who was visiting from a foreign country, she left him at the winter formal and went off with another guy. And so she was like, you just gave her a taste of her own medicine. And I was like, what? Oh my God, what? I've been beating myself up over this for 30 years, thinking that I was a horrible person. And she did something worse, from my perspective, to this exchange student. And right then, it's just like all the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame, it went away. I was like, I can stop beating myself up over this. I edited that out of my relationship frequency. And a year later, I got married. And now we're having twins. The point of this story is to tell you that whatever you're beating yourself up over, the nightmare that exists within your mind, is preventing you from realizing the fantasy. Because you deserve the fantasy. You deserve your dreams to come true. Because what I wanted more than anything was to find love, to love somebody and to have them love me in return, and to have a family. But because I was holding this guilt, shame, regret, blame over my head for 30 years, it wasn't until I was able to release that, thanks to my friend sharing me the bigger picture of things and thinking about Jupiter ruling Pisces. It's about seeing the bigger picture. How many times have I apologized to people for things that I've done to them in their life, and they said, I don't even remember you doing that. Stop beating yourself up, because you are delaying the fantasy that you deserve. My friend and her husband helped relieve me of that guilt, and a year later they were with me at my wedding. I believe that because I was able to release that guilt, shame, regret, blame, I was able to create a new reality for myself that's truly my fantasy, to have a family. So that's what this final transit is about, with Venus in Virgo opposing Saturn retrograde in Pisces. It's about taking a hard look at your relationships and where you're beating yourself up mentally and what's holding you back from getting what you really want. Because you deserve what you want. Your fantasy, you deserve it. And that leads us to the Substack article or essay of the week. Thank you to everyone who is subscribing, and thank you to my paid subscribers. If you'd like to have a paid subscription, I'm writing content that is solely for paid subscribers that are going to give you specific insight to the transits and how to work through those transits to your benefit. The free content is going to be these historical pieces that I'm reading on the podcast. So here we go. The Ram and the Scales. When Venus goes to war at 14 degrees Aries. On October 6, 2025, at 8:47 p.m. Pacific Time, the moon blazes full at 14 degrees and 8 minutes in Aries. The cardinal fire sign symbolized by the ram and ruled by Mars, the god of war. Opposite, the sun holds court in Libra, the cardinal air sign ruled by Venus, goddess of love and justice. Every year, the moon grows full in Aries, opposing the Libra sun. This polarity is eternal. Aries charges forward with raw instinct, asserting the will of the self. Libra steadies the scales, demanding fairness, harmony, and law. The annual Aries-Libra full moon asks, do we choose force or balance, violence or justice? But this year, the moon lands at 14 degrees Aries, a Taurus-ruled degree, and that changes everything. In the degree theory system developed by Serbian astrologer Nikola Stojanovic, 0 degrees of any sign carries the sign's eternal nature, while degrees 1 through 29 cycle through the zodiac. 1 is always Aries, 2 is always Taurus, 3 is always Gemini, and so on. At 14 degrees Aries, we have the 14th degree, a Taurus degree, within the sign of Aries. Venus, through Taurus, expressed through Mars's sign, opposing Venus, through Libra, expressed through diplomacy. This is not just the blade versus the scales. This is Venus at war with herself. On one side, Venus is defending what she values: territory, resources, possessions, security, homeland. On the other side, Venus negotiating what is fair: treaties, balance, justice, law. And when the moon returns to this exact degree, history reveals a startling pattern. This is not abstract ideological conflict. This is a war over tangible things, over land, over wealth, over who owns what and who has the right to take it. The historical record, fighting for what we value. October 7th, 1701, the War of Spanish Succession. The death of Spain's childless king ignited a continental war over a simple question: who inherits the throne and all the territories, wealth, and resources that come with it? This was Venus in Taurus at her most literal. Dynasties fighting over possession. Europe would bleed for 13 years over who owned what. Then the pattern shifted. For 66 years, the full moon moved to other degrees. The cosmic spotlight turned elsewhere until it returned. October 7th, 1667, the Townshend Acts. British imposed taxes on American colonies: tea, glass, paper, paint. The issue was not philosophical, it was economical. Who controls colonial resources? Who extracts wealth? The ram snorted at the violation of property rights. Within years, tea would float in Boston Harbor. October 7th, 1786, Shays' Rebellion. Farmers in Massachusetts, crushed by debt and facing foreclosure, rose in armed rebellion. This was not about abstract liberty. It was about losing their land. Taurus defending the earth beneath their feet. Venus answered Mars. The Constitutional Convention convened, drafting economic protections into a new social contract. October 8th, 1805. Battle of Trafalgar. Napoleon's navy shattered against British guns. This was not just military dominance. It was about who would control maritime trade routes, colonial resources, and global commerce for the next century. The seas themselves became property, and Britain claimed them. October 7th, 1824. Greek War of Independence. Rebels fought not for ideology, but for homeland, the physical soil, the ancestral territory occupied by the Ottoman Empire. Aries defending Taurus, our land, our mountains, our sovereignty over what belongs to us. October 8th, 1843. The abolitionist surge. The horror at the heart of America's economy. Humans treated as property, as resources, as assets to be bought and sold. Venus in Taurus perverted into commodification of human beings. The ram demanded action. The scales demanded justice. The collision would come in blood 2 decades later. October 7th, 1862. The Battle of Perryville. The Civil War was many things, but at its economic core, it was about systems of labor, land ownership, and who controls the means of production. Thousands died in Kentucky testing the balance of territorial and economic power. Mars painted the fields red over Taurus concerns. October 7th, 1881. Gunfight at the OK Corral. 30 seconds, 30 shots, 3 men dead. The mythology obscures the mundane truth. This was about cattle rustling, property disputes, and economic conflicts in a boomtown built on silver mining. Venus defending material interests through Mars's guns. October 8th, 1900. The end of the Boxer Rebellion. Foreign powers crushed Chinese nationalism and then carved up the country's resources and territory through unequal treaties. The scales tipped not towards justice, but towards whoever held more guns and wanted more land. Another gap. The pattern disappeared for 95 years before returning to this exact degree. October 8, 1995. Bosnia and the road to Dayton. Ethnic cleansing was fought over one brutal question. Whose land is this? Who has the right to live on this soil, in these villages, in these valleys? Territory soaked in blood, waiting to see if Venus, through Libra, could negotiate borders that Mars, through Aries, had drawn in massacre. The pattern revealed. The precision is undeniable. When the full moon lands at 14 degrees Aries, the Taurus degree, humanity fights over what it values in the most material sense. Land and territory, Greece, Bosnia, Spanish succession, economic resources and wealth, Townsend Acts, Trafalgar, Boxer Rebellion, property and ownership, Shays Rebellion, OK Corral, control over labor and production, slavery, civil war. This is Venus in her earthiest form, expressed through Mars's blade. Not fighting for ideals or principles, fighting for tangible things, for what can be held, owned, controlled, defended. Opposite, the Libra Sun pleads for negotiation, for treaties, for fairness. But across 3 centuries, the answer has been consistent. Force comes first. Balance flows when it comes at all. And what gets balanced are resources, territories, borders. The material world carved up by those who survived the fight. October 2025. What are we fighting for? 30 years after Dayton, the pattern returns. Once again, the conflicts scorching the earth are fundamentally about Taurus concerns. Ukraine, territory, sovereignty over land, control of resources, grain, minerals, strategic position. Middle East, oil, water rights, contested land, sacred geography claimed by multiple peoples. Taiwan, control of semiconductor production, strategic territorial position, economic dominance. Domestic unrest across nations. Housing crises, inflation, economic inequity. Who owns what and who gets to keep it? Mars has already drawn his blade, not over philosophy, but over things you can touch. Land, resources, wealth, security. The question is whether Venus through Libra can arrive in time to negotiate fair distribution, or whether she will come only to rarefy whatever Mars through Aries has already seized. The full moon is not new. It is a return. Venus goes to war with herself again, the part that wants to possess versus the part that wants to share fairly. The choice. When the moon glows full at 14 degrees Aries, she illuminates our relationship to what we value, not our ideals, our tangible values. What we believe is worth fighting for, what we think we deserve to keep, what we're willing to kill to defend. Opposite, the Libra Sun reminds us possession without justice is theft. Security hoarded becomes others' deprivation. What I claim as mine may have been ours or theirs first. This full moon asks, what do I believe I have the right to possess, and at whose expense? Am I defending what I genuinely need, or am I hoarding what others lack? Can I negotiate fair distribution of resources before violence decides it for me? For 3 centuries, at this exact degree, Mars has fought over material things while Venus tried to balance the ledgers afterward. Perhaps this time we can bring them together before the blood is spilled. Perhaps this time we can value both security and fairness. Perhaps this time the blade and the scales can meet over the question of who owns what and agree that possession is not the same as right. On October 6th, the moon rises at 14 degrees Aries. Venus, expressed through Mars' sign, stands ready to defend what she values. Venus, expressed through Libra, holds the scales and waits. The story of resources and justice is not finished, but it could be rewritten. I hope this message has been empowering to you. I hope that you have an amazing week ahead. Thank you for being here and spending time with me today. And I'll look forward to reconnecting with you next week. Thank you for listening to the weekly transit. If you're curious to learn how these transits or any other transits may be affecting you, or if you're interested in learning more about your astrological code, contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. This episode was produced by me, Scott Tajarian. Music written by Ben Leinbach from Listen Deep by Amber Herzog Lyman. Wishing you all the best as you ride the planetary waves.